Here with George Ferocious Kambosos, IBF #1 lightweight challenger. How are you doing, George, and how's training camp going?
I'm doing great. Training camp has been spot on. We're working on a lot of different things, a lot of game plan, and we're working towards our world title eliminator.
Great, awesome. So where did you get the Ferocious alias from? Where did that
Started a very long time ago, back in the amateurs. I'd taken some school friends to come watch me fight early in my career, and put on a great display of ferocious fighting. And all of a sudden, one of the boys calls out and says, "That was Ferocious Kambosos," and all of a sudden it just stuck. And look, if you see the way I fight, the way I'm in that ring, it's man against man. And I come in there with every bit of ferociousness when I'm in that ring.
Great. So what age were you when you first got into the sport, and how did you get into boxing?
I started at 11 years of age. I was an overweight, Greek Australian kid. I would go to my grandparents and they'd stuff food down my mouth, and obviously the weight started packing on. But I was playing rugby league at the same time, junior park footy. And in the off season, my father turned around and said, "Look, if you want to make the A side, we have to do something in the off season." Because we live close to the beach, he brought out for me to do nippers, but that was never gonna be something I wanted to do. So we ended up going to the boxing gym, the local PCYC, and I never looked back. 100 amateur fights, 18 professional fights, #1 contender to the IBF title, and we're here today.
Excellent. So who were your biggest boxing inspirations when you were growing up?
Look, the inspirations, I never really had a massive inspiration from any fighter. I love looking at all different fighters and picking different styles from each fighter. Guys like Roberto Duran, Mike Tyson, Manny Pacquiao, obviously Mayweather. All these different fighters, I love picking bits and pieces from them. But the inspiration came from all what I was doing in my career, and each fight got better and better and more successful. I kind of found more inspiration from what I was doing, but I did take bits and pieces from each fighter as well.
So did you get any inspiration from a certain fighter? And who was that fighter, and how did that inspire the way that you approach fighting when you get into the ring?
If you could say one fighter, it'd possibly be Roberto Duran. His sheer ferociousness, the way he would fight, the aggression that he would bring to the fights, he was kill or be killed. And the way I fight is very similar. I go in there with everything I got, and I love to put on a show.
So what do you think separates you from the other fighters in the lightweight division right now?
Look, my discipline, my dedication, the way I train. Obviously, I put 110% in. There's never a shortcut in my preparations. You ask any of my trainers, you ask anyone that's associated with Ferocious Kambosos, they'll tell you that he's the hardest worker in the sport. So I believe the way I train, my discipline to the sport, you have to give it everything. You can't shortcut anything in this sport. So that's something that I've always done in my career, and it's taken me leaps and bounds. If you're doing things right in your career and you're doing the right thing in the gym and you're staying disciplined, the undefeated record is going to stay there because you're going to continue winning. I'm chasing the hardest fights, the biggest fights, and the best fights. I'm not shying away from anyone or any fighter. That's why my last fight, we went against a former world champion and we took out a hometown favourite at Madison Square Garden.
As he punches to the bell.
So speaking of that last fight, last December at Madison Square Garden, you beat Mickey B. Was that the fight that you're most proud of to date?
It was a great performance. It's hard to pick because every fight that I've had has been very important, and I've always put in great performances. When I cleaned up my backyard here in Australia, against some solid names like Ogilvy and Camille Barla, they were great wins. When I won the Australian title years ago against Robert Toomey, it was a fantastic win. But I think this was my biggest test, and a lot of eyes were on this fight to see where I stood against a former world champion, especially to fight them in their backyard. To do what we done in that fight and put on a great performance was something special. And the venue as well, Madison Square Garden. You can't beat the venues. You dream of these venues when you're coming up as a young fighter, as an amateur. Every fighter wants to get to these kind of venues. So, we got them. We wanted to make it special. So that's why, when the fight presented itself against a former world champion, we jumped at it. We wanted that test.
What was it like in Madison Square Garden? The moments leading up to the fight. How can you describe that anticipation? The ring walk. How was that for you?
Even that the venue is the most famous venue in the world, and even though we're fighting a former world champion, as soon as we went through that entrance and we focused on just that ring, it's the same ring like we are in this gym, it's me and him. Doesn't matter the venue, doesn't matter where we are in the world. At the end of the day, it's me and the opponent. And I had a job to do that night, and I've done it to my very, very best. And obviously another victory away from closer to a world title.
So do you have a favourite punch or combination? And how important do you think footwork is to getting the secret to the perfect punch? And can you give us a demonstration?
I do have a favourite punch. I don't want to give it away too much, but obviously because my opponents are all watching. But the uppercut, obviously everyone sees that fantastic explosive uppercut that I have. It's a dangerous shot. The way I throw it, the power I possess behind it, it's very ferocious. And when it lands, they definitely feel it.
So how does your training vary leading up to a big fight? And how much importance do you attribute to sparring as a method of preparation for a fight?
Well, preparation usually goes in blocks where you're doing more strength conditioning, your rounds, your power work early in the start of prep. When we get in the midsection, we're doing our hard sparring, the game plan, and obviously your road work. And the closer you are, everything's nice and sharp. The speed work, you're continuing your sparring. The game plan should be on point, the pad work should be on point, and everything should be ready. But when it comes to sparring is extremely important, and the right sparring partners are extremely important as well. You need to be tested every day. You need to have the right sparring partner that suits the guy you're fighting. There's no point, sparring someone that is not suited to the guy you're fighting. You need to emulate the exact person you're fighting, and at this level, it's the 1% that gets you to that world title, that makes you the world champion. And that's where we are today. We're making sure that no stone is unturned in our prep, and that comes down to our discipline, our dedication, having the right team, which we have.
So talking about sparring and sparring partners, the 250 rounds you did with Manny Pacquiao as his main sparring partner, how was that experience, and how has that shaped you as a fighter moving forward?
Look, the experience is you can't put a price on that experience. It's Manny Pacquiao's all-time great. To be there trading leather for not just one round, but 250 rounds. Not many opponents that he's fought knows him inside out like I do. And to be in there trading leather is extraordinary. Been very great for my career, very vital. It's made me a better fighter. I learned a lot from a multiple all-time world champion great from Manny Pacquiao. So it was great for my career. And just to see how he is away from boxing as well, the human being he is, the kind of respect he has, it's been great on my career. And what better fighter to follow in their footsteps than Manny Pacquiao, the all-time great.
Can you share any stories from that time you spent with him over in the Philippines?
One of the funny stories was, obviously, we finished our road work. It was one of the first times I ran with him. Yeah. And it was about 7 a.m, and he wanted to have breakfast together. So we sat down at the table, and look, I'm expecting, your wheat bix or, your yogurt, your Greek yogurt. But they do a little bit different in the Philippines, and he brought out the soup, the beef soup, and the rice. And I looked at him and said, it's a bit early to be having this stuff. But yeah, it was a funny experience, different experience. And, sometimes it's good to open your eyes how different, it is in different countries, like the Philippines. So that was one of the experiences, but there's a lot of different stuff that we done together, and obviously we trained extremely hard as well and learned a lot from him.
So at the moment, if you could pick anyone to fight in the world, currently boxing, who would that be?
Look, it'd be Vasyl Lomachenko. That's the fight I want. Yeah. And look, I'm one fight away from a possible clash with Lomachenko. And they've spoken about the fight. They've spoken about doing it possibly here in Australia. And look, our next fight's a world title eliminator. Once we win that fight, we'll be the mandatory to the IBF title, which he's fighting Teofimo Lopez. If he was to clean up all the belts and beat Lopez, we're mandatory to his title. So everything is on track. We're on a collision course, and look, that's the dream fight, and we're very close to making that a reality.
That's the fight I think everyone wants to see. So what do you need to do to become undisputed world champion?
Well, you got to beat him. If he's got all the belts, you got to take his belts. It all starts from our next fight, a world title eliminator. Once we get rid of the opponent in the world title eliminator, then we're mandatory to the title. We win the title, and if Lomachenko, he's got all the belts, then we get rid of him and win all the belts and become unified champion of the world, which is what we set out to do a very long time ago.
And bring the belts back to Australia, that's the plan.
Definitely, I want to bring the belts back to Australia. I want to defend it here in Australia. I want to defend it in Greece. I want to take the big fights to Greece as well. Being so proud of my heritage. I love to bring, world title fights and champion quality fights to both Greece and Australia.
So how important is it to you to promote Australian boxing at the moment? Because there's not that many fighters that we have, and it's definitely not as exciting as you. So is that something in the back of your mind?
Yeah, 100%. I believe, I'm the top guy in Australian boxing coming through, and there's some fantastic fighters. And look, I'm on the world scene. I'm fighting overseas, having some great victories overseas, and we want to continue, showing Australian boxing and showing the world that we have some great fighters here. It's very important that we continue doing what we're doing and showing the world what we're about, because we have a kind of look overseas where we're looked at as easy beats, but not this fighter here.
And after a big fight, what is the thing that you look forward most to doing? After you've finished your fight, coming back home, what is the first thing you like to do?
Look, coming back home, I sound crazy, but I like getting back in the gym. There's always a problem that there might have been something I've done wrong in the fight, where I want to work back in the gym and perfect it. That's the kind of fighter I am. But look, I like to spend time with my kids, my family, try to switch off from mentally trying to focus on fighting another man. But I'm back in the gym. I love preparing and getting better. I feel that if I take a bit of time off or relax, I'm not going to be able to improve and get better and better. So that's the way I like to my downtime is pretty much in the gym perfecting what I'm doing.
So do you stay around the 130 pound weight limit all year round, or do you have to cut significantly before a fight?
No, the 135 pound weight limit is exactly where I stay around. Weight cut's never been a big issue for myself. Like I said, I'm a professional. I'm very disciplined to the sport. I'm disciplined to my craft, and that dedication with the hard work that I put into the gym keeps me very close to my weight as well.
And is there any particular food that you miss during training camp? Anything that you can't eat that you wish you could?
It's hard because obviously when you're in camp, you've got to eat very healthy, and you've got to make sure that you don't make no mistakes leading into camp and in the fight preparation. But I can't go past my Greek food. My grandparents' Greek food, the spanakopita and the lamb, and all the cheese pies and everything. It's hard to not obviously have that, but that's part of preparation, part of, again, the dedication and discipline you have to have to the sport.
So when it's all said and done, you've finished, what do you want your legacy in boxing to be? Where do you see your legacy panning out?
Look, I want the fans to know that Ferocious Kambosos Jr never took no shortcuts. Took on the best, fought the best, and became a world champion. And we're chasing to be a unified champion. That's what I want to chase, that's what I want to become. And again, I want the fans to know that we left it all in the ring.
It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, George. All the best for the next fight. Do you have any final message you want to give to the fans out there?
Obviously, I appreciate all the fans all around the world. And thank you to Greek City Times and yourself for this great interview.
Thanks, George.